I have a piece of criticism. Somebody bashed me one time, and I actually have it on my desktop. And I've opened it a few times and read it. It was just about, like, I used to love Jim, but the guy made some valid points as to what I do wrong on the radio. And about how, like, and I felt
it was like constructive criticism?
Yeah, but he was mad. But I actually felt like, this is actually coming from a guy who is a fan and who just thinks I've been quite a cunt for a while. And you know what? I read it, and it just resonated with me like this guy is not wrong. I mean, I don't like what he said, but
it's a very mature way of handling criticism.
But yeah, normally it's much more like rageful. I want to find out who they are, and I get very, very angry. And this time it just got me right. I'm like, I know he's being honest.
Yeah.
And he's like, I have been doing that. It feels exposing when some stranger just notices your weaknesses and your crutches.
I've had a couple of heckles like that. Where they kind of put you in your place, and you got to be like, you want to be like, what do you do for a living? That sucks. But you have to be like, I finally learned at one point. Oh, you know something? I actually learned about handling hecklers in a different way watching you. I did, down at Caroline's. It finally clicked. I learned through watching you, you don't have to chop all their heads off. Sometimes they are ordering food. Sometimes they're just repeating a punchline. Like I forget what they were talking, and you just kind of said something. What'd you say? Oh, okay. And you kind of like, you actually asked them what they said. I think that's what it was, rather than just assuming that they were trashing you, saying that you sucked. Because the amount of times I kept having this reoccurring thing where if anybody talked, I was convinced they were saying that I sucked, and they were making fun of how I looked or whatever. This is the first 8-9 years of my career, and I would chop their heads off. And the amount of times afterwards, people would come up to me at the end of shows going, I was just asking where the bathroom was, or I was actually saying I enjoyed your act and blah, 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 blah. And then I felt like I couldn't get out of it, man. I was locked in this, get him kind of vibe. And then I was watching you, and it took me a while to learn how to do that.
Well, I had one too. It's once in a while that will happen at the cellar because that's such a loud, small area. Where you'll say something you'll hear somebody talking, and I can always see if it's somebody ordering a drink, then I leave it alone, because it's a small room. But once in a while you'll hear talking, and I've had a few people like over the years go like, "What'd you say? I think you're funny. I'm enjoying you." And then I just kind of I repeat that, and I just kind of get the audience to laugh at me with it because it's like, all right, they all know I was about to attack the person.
Yeah.
I mean, they all know that this was an almost heckle.
So did you always do that, or is that something?
I think I learned it in a place called Arbijon's, which was it's where I first met Ari Spears back in like 1991 when he was Mom would bring him to open mics, and he would do these RoboCop impressions, but he was too young to get in by himself, so his mother took him. And it was a Sheraton bar area. And
Jesus, I just felt a wave of depression. I probably did that gig.
Yeah, Well, East Brunswick, New Jersey. When did you start? What year?
I started March of '92.
Okay, yeah, so you might have. It was right around that time.
Well, I started up in Massachusetts, and then I got down to New York. I probably did my first road gig out there end of '95, beginning of '96. Okay. But I remember going out to some of those Jersey ones in those hotels.
Awful.
Yeah, they were either great or you just were driving home fucking. That's 1,000-yard stare. Like, oh my, what have I done?
I remember doing one with Vinnie Brand and Bob Levy where there was a pool, I believe, in between us and the audience. I'll never forget that gig. We were on one side. It was a Holiday Inn, and it was in the pool area. And
which is an obvious place for a comedy show.
A wonderful place to try your art.
Wet feet slapping by as you're fucking trying to do your jokes.
Yeah, it was really bad. I remember Vinnie, or we were in the front, but I remember there was a pool. I think between us and the crowd, but in that Arbijon's room, I was smashing a heckler.
Arbijon's.
And nobody was laughing in the back, and then I realized they can't hear what is being said.
Right.
Repeat what they say. It buys you another couple seconds, and nobody knows you're doing it.
Right.
Isn't that weird? Like how with the audience, we know we're like someone's like you suck, you're terrible. I suck and I'm terrible. It's like you've just bought yourself. Yeah, and if you hit them, you still get credit.
Priceless time.
Yeah,
yeah.
It's really weird. I don't know how to explain this to people. When people are like, how did you come up with that fast? Like, I don't know. When you see a funny moment, I don't mean a written joke, but if someone slams you and you're great at fucking firing back immediately. Like Darrell Hammond said, he sees impressions as colors, like a yellow or an orange. Or he can't explain it. When I see like slamming something as like it's like these weird choices you're making. They're kind of floating in front of you. Like you don't see the words,
Is that why you're so? Because you got the fastest mind of anybody. When you used to sit at the table at the cellar, dude. Patrice was would just make you fucking.
Yeah.
You'd start crying when he was the best. But like as far as speed, like I thought Patrice a lot of times he would use his laugh to drown you out. Like he had all these different things. You would just sit there. I remember when you would start looking at me, I was like, oh fuck, he's looking at me. He's looking. It was a different thing. Like with Keith, I felt Keith Robinson. Keith, you could get a mitt in his face to try to throw him off. Like, Keith, stop looking at me, blah, blah, blah. And that would make him forget what he was going to say. But you never forgot. And Voss, all you had to do was – I had techniques for all you guys to survive the pond. Voss, all you had to do was lay on the ropes, and eventually he would say something that bombed, and then it would come back on him. He always got bit. He would hit you 1, 2, 3 times, and then that 4th or 5th one would be so bad it bombed that everyone would then jump on him. So you never really had to get him back.
Voss would be pounding you, but he always got greedy and threw a right-hand lead.
Yeah. He'd always punch himself out.
Always punch himself out. But how do you see when you're whether it's a heckler or whatever? How do you? I can't explain to people how that works. Like how do you think of a joke or a funny thing to say? It's almost like it's just like watching things float in front of you and you grabbing them.
I look at it more like in the beginning. It was like, remember, like I have to have these stock lines.
Right.
Hey, where'd you learn how to whisper?
Helicopter.
In a helicopter factory? Yeah. Like, what is that? They're already on? Yeah. It didn't even make sense. And it always got to laugh. But it was more like I had those stock lines, and then it became, I was watching Greg Fitzsimmons, and I've told him this before on his show. I learned from Greg, where Greg would just ask him, like, Greg is fucking unbelievable. He's so good at fucking with people in the crowd. I remember one time we were playing this place, the Grill 93 in, oh my God, where was it? It was on Route 93.
It's Massachusetts?
Yeah, it was not Arlington. That was where Dane was from.
Springfield?
I can't remember. Begin with an A. I don't remember. And
Andover, Mass?
Andover. There you go. Yeah, the Grill 93 in Andover, Mass. And these two guys showed up with matching American flag shirts. And they sat in the front row, and Greg was so good at trashing people. Like, I was either hosting or featuring, but me and the host or me and the feature both said to Greg, we're not going to fuck with those guys, but you have to promise us that you're going to, right at the beginning, go after them. And he goes, absolutely, absolutely. So we deliberately did not. I mean, those guys wanted to get picked on, and Greg ended up going up there, and he just started telling this story that just went all the way around the fucking bend to the point people were like, what is he talking about? And somehow he brought it around the beat. You know, I mean, that would be like, I don't know, like wearing matching American flags, shirts with your friends or something. And then he just pointed at the guys and opened his mouth like David Lee Roth, you know, when he looks at the back row. And it just fucking absolutely destroyed. I saw him one time at the Kowloon. It was like Hannibal Lecter shit. He could tell by the shoes the guy was wearing. He guessed the guy's name in 4 guesses. He guessed his job. The table the guy was sitting at was going nuts. And it was just all, and of course his name was horrible. His job was horrible. Where he lived was horrible. He did a little vignette of their family. Like, he's unbelievable at doing stuff like that. So that's funny when people ask me, you know, who are your influences, blah, blah. You know, as much as it was the greats that you listen to, people don't understand that not only did you learn, you know, I was watching Attell, CK, and all those guys who were beyond me, but I learned watching guys that were, you know, breaking in at the same time I did.
Sure.
Yeah, where you're starting to, because I a lot of times you would get yourself into the same situation that a more seasoned guy wouldn't, and I would watch you get out of it and be like, oh, I never thought to do it that way.
Right. That's how you take it and stop it before it goes off the cliff in the hole. Because I realized too that a lot of times I would lose crowds by hitting too hard. Like, you know, a guy throws up something that deserves a 4. It's almost like in...
You go right to, I hope you get AIDS.
Yeah, right to him. Yeah, like, what's that? Your fucking wife's got cancer? Like, what? Dude, but there's totally unnecessary. Like, and the crowd hates you for it. So it's like, the worst is when someone's heckling you in the front. I'll never forget this guy heckling me at Rascals. I was a new comic, but even back then I knew this guy was being a twat. Because he was heckling me, and it wasn't horrible shit that he was saying, but it was his eyes. Like, I knew he's that scumbag in the office who's resentful that he's not up here getting laughs. Like, hey, yeah. And the audience can't see it. So I was pounding him, and I really ruined his night. And the crowd hated me for it.
Because they couldn't see what a dick he was.
But you know how, like, you just know.
Oh, yeah, of course I do.
And you can always
I made that
tell
mistake a zillion times.
I'll never regret doing it, though. It's like, that's 25 years ago. It's been my first year of comedy, and I still feel good that I wrecked that piece of shit's night because I knew he was coming after me.
I remember I was at the Punchline in Atlanta, and I had a guy like that, and all I can remember about what he looked like was he had loafers with no socks, and he had fat feet. So there was like they like bulging out the front, and he kept putting his feet on the stage. So I made the joke to take him off or whatever, and because he really he just was fucking annoying me, and it was just the fact that he kept putting him back. I knew that it wasn't, oh, I'm sorry, I just need to stretch my legs out. There was some sort of power things going. You're breathing into the mic there. There was like a power thing. There was like this power thing going on with him, and it literally escalated to the point that they had to kick him out. And when he stood up, he made sure he got on the stage and took like half a step towards me. And he was just, this little fucking, I don't know. He probably was doing well in business, and he was used to people telling other people what to do. And but whatever.